Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 1986. This is one of those iconic John Hughes films that were really notable in the 80s. Um, Most of the people I know have a fondness of their childhood. Maybe not a lot of people, but I know quite a few people who say, "Oh, the best days of your life, your school, maybe university days." I found them really difficult. So it's a bit of a mixed picture. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't see this film back at the time. I did start seeing more films around 1987, but I had a while where I sort of just um, didn't want to engage with a lot of things that Um, in a way, I think people like my sister, she really liked this kind of thing. And she encouraged me to see films like the John Hughes films, like Ferris Bueller. Um, and I didn't at that time. And I didn't have a fear of missing out, as it would be called now. I suppose I was already feeling quite isolated because of things that I needed to sort out about my own life. But um, those complications aside, I have more recently seen this film, and I appreciate a lot of the humor and the whole angle of this is especially like the ultimate slackers movie, getting a getting out of school. The the whole idea of this film is getting a day off, convincing. I think Ferris is probably again 16, 17 years old, and he um, manages to convince his mum and dad that he's just not at all well, needs to stay in bed. They're going out, and he has a major plan, and there are a few flies in the ointment. For a start, his sister doesn't believe him, and she's really cynical. And this is great because it builds up a lot of the tension about there's Ferris, who's super confident that he can do what he wants, but Jeannie sees through all the lies. There's certain unwritten protocols which she won't break, but if she will take a delight if he does end up coming unstuck and getting into trouble. And then there's dean of the school. I guess a dean's a bit like a headmaster in a UK school. Ed Rooney. He's out to catch Ferris. Um, Ferris has already got uh, a pretty bad truancy record. He's been off about 9 times already, and so he's looking out for all the possible pitfalls. Um, and there's there's all sorts of comical twists, little things that go wrong. Like people make mistakes, and then uh, it gets revealed in a sort of quite com- comical way, but it's sort of very just in time. You know that in a matter of seconds, the situation, often just as a matter of time, in a matter of seconds, things could be totally different. He could get found out. For instance, like the time when he has to get back home to be back in bed as if he's sick. And he has to absolutely race back to be ahead of the rest of the family. So there's all those sorts of things. He he's borrowed a car. He's like there's um, quite a few complications that add to the pitfalls, and the fact that he's managed to come up with one more plausible reason, when he's running out of them, that's the that's where um, w- much of the entertainment is in this film, um, and th- the way the other people, his anti-heroes in a sense, come unstuck. That's also quite delightful if you're rooting for Matthew Broderick's character, Bueller, Ferris Bueller. He's um, I sort of was a bit rooting for Genie as well. I mean, in a way, the delight of him actually being caught out, and so I'm not going to say how it turns out, but it gets very close at times. And the way the headmaster is a bit of a lumbering fool, and he really gets hoisted by his own petard, the mistakes he makes. Um, yeah, there's quite a lot to it. It's quite elaborate, and it is um, thoroughly entertaining. I think out of all of the out of all of John Hughes films that I've seen, I think this is probably my favourite. I recently saw Breakfast Time, and I'd seen the start of that before. I can't remember why I had to stop watching it. I mean, there's some films um, that were maybe on not in the cinema, but on telly a few years after they were in the cinema. So, say in the early 90s, something like that. Um, and there was Breakfast Club was one of those films that seemed really um, compelling to watch. I thought, great, I've really got to see this. And yet, once I actually did sit down to watch the whole film, I found it a bit disappointing. I find it a bit confusing. I don't know if that's because things are a bit different in America to Britain, but I know there's a lot of British fans of John Hughes films. So it might just be that just my own slightly poorer opinion of the 80s. It's just because that was a difficult time for me. And also, just about all of the characters seem to be cis and straight. And, if there isn't that much LGBTQIA plus representation in a film, I felt a bit more isolated and sort of like, well, this isn't really for me. I mean, even back then, surely, I mean, there were some films that did cover queer representation. It wasn't that common. It wasn't like it has been in the last few years when it's really much more popular. But um, back then, there wasn't. It was a lot harder to see yourself if everyone seemed to be heteronormative. There was this sort of compulsory heterosexuality about the characters. They all seemed to fancy um, people from the opposite gender, and that was that. It was almost like not much questioning going on. Um, and I think maybe I'm being slightly unfair because I haven't checked out all of the John Hughes films, and maybe there's more to it. Maybe I really need to understand it all better. But I know that the time that my sister was, like, saying, "Yeah, you really ought to see these films," which she liked a lot of the films from that time from I mean, uh, Heathers, that's another film I saw later than when it was released, but I didn't really get it totally. And yet, say, when I saw Mean Girls, which I reviewed the other day, after seeing it again, I loved it in, the noughties in 2004 when I saw it, and I really still like it in 2024. But films from, um, the 70s and 80s, they feel sometimes a bit strange to me because of just the position I felt I was in at that time, and just that things felt so archaic in some respects. I don't really know how to pinpoint it all. I might need to understand it better. So I'm going to score this 7.5 at the moment. I'd really like to know other people's point of view because I'm sure a lot of people are big fans of this film and lots of other films. I know when I posted on Facebook about Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and several of my straight friends who I knew from work were all over it, saying, "Oh, what a wonderful film it was." And they were the same about The Breakfast Club. And I thought, I must be missing something. And Election as well. I think that was another film. I think that's also being screened in the cinema again now, and I'm thinking maybe I ought to see that again. So just to see if giving films another chance, maybe my opinion will change. Because sometimes when I see a film um, once, I miss a lot. I think there's a lot of nuance to films. There's a lot of subtext and minds wander. Sometimes um, if I hear 80s music, it takes me back to that time, and that might be where things, fall over in my mind because there's a lot of evocative tunes from that time, and some are not they don't always bring back positive memories, and sort of reevaluate things because it wasn't all a bad time for me. I was a ch it was, a time of awakening. It was really difficult in some ways, but me putting all that onto a particular film probably isn't that fair. So, um, that's just my honest opinion at the moment, and I probably will give these films another, um, chance at some point soon, and, I'll review them on Cali Second, my other channel, when I'm able to also go into more of the spoiler territory of these films as well, because I don't there's a lot I don't want to say about the outcome in this film. I don't really want to give away things, so um, and yeah, it's fairly oh no, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. So 7.5 out of 10. Probably the best of the films, that I've seen from John Hughes, as I say. So please let me know your thoughts. Please like if you like this review. Thanks for watching. Thanks if you subscribe. Please hit the notification button and hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.